Okay, so we're going on to the third one. And the third one is, now this is, normally what we would be doing, normally we would do more of breakout rooms, but let's see if we can do a breakout room with this. But because this was more an open session and it's more of sort of clarifying things rather than actually doing things. So modeling, NLP modeling, there's no model for modeling. People have developed lots of different ways to do this. Now, just before I go on here, Philippa, did you manage to get the workbook?
Yes, I've got the workbook.
You've got the workbook, that's fine. Okay, so has everyone got the workbook? Yeah? Sable, did you get the workbook? That's fantastic. Oh yeah, you got that in advance, so you were able to print it out. Okay, so there's some really nice, in fact, before I go on to here, I would like, Joe, would you like to share, because there's really, the best videos on modelling for me are John Grinder. And you've got Richard Bandler and John Grinder, the two co-creators of NLP. But if you want to really talk about, if you want to just get some really lovely stuff about modelling, John Grinder's your man. Now, Joe, you did a modelling exercise with John Grinder, didn't you?
I did. I did a weekend with him of NLP modelling. And they got half a dozen experts for us to model. And we were put into groups and rotated around. And they varied from being a yoga teacher, there was a cartoon artist, there was an opera singer, I can't remember what the others were, but that all people that were highly skilled at something that we weren't. And one of the most important things that John emphasized at the beginning and the first sort of half day of the course was spent going into a know-nothing state. So you leave behind all your own preconceptions and thoughts, including I can't or I'm rubbish at. So you have this sort of completely neutral, almost trance-like state, and you can then absorb more easily what the person that you're modeling is doing. And we had to model all the submodalities. So they're, in the case of the opera singer, their breathing, their stance, their smile, not just focusing on the voice and what the voice was doing. So we literally took on that person and became that person. And when you do that, you suddenly find you can sing. I mean, I think I've picked the three. The yoga I'm not too bad at, but I'm rubbish at drawing and I can't sing. The only place you'll catch me singing is on my own in the car when nobody can hear. But actually that day when I was modeling the opera singer, I surprised myself. I didn't become an opera singer, but I was certainly a lot better than I had been.
You were singing.
So if you want to do something well, find the expert and literally go into that know-nothing state and take on everything that they're doing. So if it's a golfer and you want to improve your golf swing, you're not just looking at the way they're swinging their club, you're looking at how they approach it, their posture, their smile, everything about them, their breathing. Because you don't know which bit of it is impacting the outcome. And it might be for the opera singer that actually the breathing is the really important thing. Or even for the golf, taking the breath at the right point. So it's literally know-nothing state and then modeling every small nuance.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay,
yeah,
I've got,
amazing weekend. If you ever get the opportunity to do it, it's an amazing, and it is the fundamental of NLP. NLP is not rocket science. It was people modeling excellence. It was John and Richard going and finding the best therapists and breaking down exactly what they were doing, because the experts themselves didn't know what it was that they were doing that was so effective.
And also there's another thing that John Grinder says about that as well. When they modelled Ericsson, John said he wasn't a very nice man to his wife. He said he wasn't nice to his wife or family. He said, so always make sure you're modelling the right parts of the behaviour.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to model, he didn't want to take on or model how he was talking to other people, but he wanted to actually notice what he was doing from that. But I'm going to take you through a couple of stages on top of that, Josie. But I've got a question I've never asked you, Joe, in all these years since you did that. How many different people did you become in that weekend? Did you get a chance to move around?
6.
So you did
you
the
rotate
6.
around all of them, yeah. You do all 6. It was a whole weekend.
There was a chef there as well, was there not? Was there a chef? Or have I made that up? Have I distorted that one?
I don't know. There were other weekends. I don't remember a chef.
Yeah.
There was a karate expert as well, I think, or it was one of the a martial art expert as well as the yoga expert. Yeah, it's a while ago.
And what was interesting, I remember doing a business practitioner years ago in Henley and Arden, and we actually were working in a golf club. And there was all these retired golfers were really curious because we were all doing mad exercises and things. And they were going, what are you doing? There was a couple of, because we were, we're obviously in the bar at lunchtime having our lunch and they get talking to us. And we were coming up to the deep trance identification day. And I said, well, we're modelling excellence. We're going into the modelling of excellence. And they went, a couple of guys said, could you make me play golf like Tiger Woods? I went, of course we can. So what they did, they got this group together, and it's a group that play once a week. And they're all probably in their 60s and 70s. And we got them to imagine, we got them lined up, I think it was about 10 of them, and we got them all to imagine I'm sharing this because go and experiment. Nobody can tell you how to do this. Just go and play with it. When opportunity arises, just go and jump in and do it. So I had them all standing there saying, okay, so imagine Tiger Woods in front of you. Now start to stand the way Tiger Woods stands. And you saw them all going, they're all, and, backs that were slightly like this, all of a sudden were like this, and the heads were moving. And we're just imagine your Tiger Woods, imagine step, and then I got them to close their eyes. So really imagine yourself, your Tiger Woods. Then I got them to imagine take one step forward and become Tiger Woods. So they're actually going into the mind and body of Tiger Woods everywhere. And we go and play golf. They had to change. We completely ruined the scores because every single one of them, their scores all went, whatever way they scored in golf, they had brilliant scores. And everyone said, what happened? And they had to turn around and say, we were hypnotized by these people. Magnus.
I'll tell you, this is a true story of my trainer of NLP, Kjell Enhagen. He was the coach of Nick Faldo, the world number one in golf for many years. Yeah. And in the end of the career, Nick was declining and he didn't even qualify for all the games. But then he should play a game in Chicago. And he called for Kjell. So Kjell flew over from Sweden to Chicago and arrived to the course. And Nick was on the practicing his swing. And Kjell is a golf pro himself. So he teaches golf players. And he was looking at Faldo and he was swinging very good, very solid. And Nick said, don't you see anything? What is wrong? No. The balance is perfect. The tempo is perfect. But then Nick said, but this is the longest course on the tour. And you can see how short I play. Then Kjell asked Nick, so who is hitting the ball longest then? Tiger Woods. Okay, so what is he doing? And then Nick changed all his posture. And all of a sudden, he hit the ball and it went 25 to 30 meters longer.
Yep.
So during the week, Nick was all of a sudden in the top 5 again, that he had not been for 5 years. And the Swedish golf player Jesper Parnevik asked Kjell, "What the hell have you done with Nick?" And Kjell said, "Don't tell anything, but he believes that he's Tiger Woods." so this was in a professional game.
Yeah. So it's what we're picking up all these micro movements, the tiny little micro movements. Even my personal trainer I was working with the other day, and he had me doing a move that I thought was absolutely impossible, and we just literally did a micro movement, and all of a sudden I was able to come right a bit. I was able to bend. I was trying to go sideways. I actually had to come forward before I could come down. The minute I had that micro movement, my whole body bent over. Unbelievable. So we're picking all this at the unconscious level. So let me just show you what, and I advise you, go and look on YouTube, go and look up John Grinder's, some of his work on modelling. His modelling steps that he gives, exactly what Joe was talking about. Find a genius, someone who does something well. And his definition of genius is just someone who is excellent at what they're doing. They don't have to be famous. We're not talking about famous. We're just talking about someone who's absolutely excellent. And then unconsciously assimilate. Practice in a parallel context. Now, I've given you this as John's way of saying it. Practice in a parallel context until your behaviour becomes the same and you get the same responses. Then conscious, unconscious dance of coding of what you're able to do, and then give the code to other people. So that way you can model and pass on excellence. So it's find someone who's really good at something and then watch them. Watch them, keep watching them, keep observing and listening and watching. So the unconscious assimilation is really, really spend time just what they're doing, what they're doing. So eventually you can almost do it. You're starting to do it unconsciously. You're not having to think about that. And that does not happen by watching them once. So for example, if you're watching, if we keep to the Tiger Woods analogy here, and this is why people buy the golf videos. They don't watch it once, they watch it hundreds, maybe thousands of times. They watch it, what they do, right, okay, and they'll do this, and they'll do the movement, and they'll do that. So the point is they can just do it actually automatically.
I use a similar thing when I'm doing a circle of confidence or a circle of excellence with somebody. Step into somebody that you really admire and only take on their characteristics that are useful to you. You don't want to be that person. You want the characteristics that are useful for you. So there's lots of ways of using this.
Okay. So, and again, thanks, Joe, for that. So practice in parallel context. In other words, go and do it. Go and do the same thing. So if it's golf, go and play golf. Keep watching, keep moving, keep doing all sorts of things and keep practicing until your behavior becomes the same and you get the same or similar response. Okay. And then the unconscious conscious dance of coding what you're doing. Now, this really hits in at master practitioner level for me. And I think those of you who've trained to master practitioner or trainer, you see, and when you go to practitioner level, you're learning the techniques and you're starting to become aware. You're becoming consciously aware of what you're doing. When you go into conscious unconscious awareness, it means you start to become conscious of things that you're doing automatically. You're able to break down, you just do something and almost simultaneously you can break down, what have I done there? How did I do that? And you can break it down straight away. And I know most of the people I train, it's at master level, this all starts to click in. They start to go, all right, I've really got this conscious, unconscious awareness. So it means that you're doing a strange thing here. You're actually practicing and practicing, looking and learning, practicing, moving, till it becomes automatic. And then once it's automatic, you have to break it down. You have to figure out, what are you doing? How am I doing this? And you start to break it down. And you do things like, you give the code to other people. So what the conscious, unconscious dancing of coding, what you're able to do is writing out your strategy, breaking down the strategy. And again, we do strategy elicitation in great detail on master level. We go into it in a little bit on the practitioner, but the master's when it's you're writing out the strategy equations. So we're looking at, and I'm going to give you an example at the moment for presentation skills. What you're looking at when you're modeling someone is you're looking at the recipe of what's happening in the outside world and also what's going on in the inside world. So what pictures are they making? What are they saying to themselves? How are they feeling? Now, what's interesting is when you model the way that Joe was modeling with John Grinder, you actually start to access maybe how someone is seeing something. You might not know, you might not be able to, if you're modeling someone that you're not able to talk to, you might not actually know what picture they're making. But it becomes interesting to say, okay, when I imagine that, I'm making a picture of that. And then you can ask the person modeling, what picture do you make? What are you seeing? What do you see before you do something? So what's the visual submodality? What's the feeling? What are you saying to yourself? What do you hear in your inside world? So you're putting together the inside world and the outside world. So let me just show you an example. So that's an activity from last week. So modeling an excellent business presenter. This was something that I actually did with someone. So first of all, you find someone who's a great presenter. If you want to, and part of our master now is we ask the people who are master level to do modeling projects. So they go and model 5 people. We now get them to model 5 people and they break it down into great detail what they do. So go and watch them many times, listen to how they use their voice, the words they use, body posture, movement, sense their energy, eye contact, gestures, etc. So these are all the things that Joe was talking about you're picking up. And when you start to become conscious of the huge amount of things that are all going on the outside world, even just starting with the outside world, you'll start to go, oh, there's a lot more that I normally would look at here. And you can sense someone's energy. You can sense when they're giving off loads of energy. Keep practicing and presenting in the same way until you get the similar responses with your audience. So keep practicing to the point that and I remember when I did it first time, let me just stand up and show you this. I remember being very impressed by this woman who was able to walk about the stage and she would put her hand in her pocket and she would walk about and she would say something and the whole room would be watching her. I remember when I did it myself, after a lot of practice, I remember feeling it was the weirdest thing. I had a pair of trousers with pockets in it, and it was the weirdest thing. I just felt all of a sudden my hand naturally went into my pocket. This hand went out. I paused. I said something, and the whole audience burst out laughing. I hadn't made a joke. I was displaying natural humor on stage, and I remember thinking, this is what this is all about. Okay, it became, I was now that presenter. I was now that person, or that I was modeling that behavior for me in my style that felt absolutely natural and normal, because it should feel really natural. A lot of people try and model and it's not natural to them. But this is where it's got to be, and it's not the same response, similar response to your audience. You're not becoming someone else. You're just getting very good. You're learning how to do something really well. Then break down the strategy of what you're doing. How did I do that? How was I able to do that? What was I saying to myself? What was I seeing? What was I thinking in that moment? How was I feeling? Where was the feeling? How was the feeling moving? Was it heavy? Was it light? Was it still? Was it, there's all sorts of things there. And then you have a working strategy that you can install in others. So you can actually, so that is basically that. So that's the slide that should have come after John Grinder's slide. That's the slide that's explaining everything of how John does that. So this is how I modeled someone. When I'm modeling excellence, I also like to ask the genius, I'm modeling meta-model questions to get a greater insight into their inside world. Because there are 2 parts to that success recipe: the outside world, the part we can see and hear, and the inside world, everything that's happening inside someone that we can't see or hear, but these things are affecting a person's behavior. Now, in the outside world, I observed and heard that person prepared and checked her equipment and material before she started, spending time talking to people before she started her presentation, smiling, giving eye contact with our audience, looking confident, speaking in a strong, clear voice, moving with purpose, engaging with her audience, telling stories and making people laugh, sounding passionate about what she was speaking about. So that was what I was able to see by just, can I watch you presenting? And this was years ago. And I remember very much the woman it was. It was a manager of mine when I worked in Xerox, and she was great. She was really brilliant, and I just used to watch her and watch her and watch her and watch her and watch her. And I used to always say, "Oh, I'd love to be like you." I didn't know about NLP modeling. I'd love to be like you. But once I knew about NLP, I was then able to go back to this person and ask them questions, which I did. And I asked them, this is what I discovered. This is the inside world. So what are you saying? What are you seeing before you start a presentation? I'm making a movie of myself giving a great presentation. She actually saw herself on stage or standing up in front of people. And then imagining before she started a big, bright, colourful picture of herself standing in front of a completely engaged audience. So there was a moving part and then there was a still part. So just before she started, there was almost like that screenshot of just the paused image. And then telling herself in a strong, confident voice, I get my key points across. Marking out different places to stand on the stage and mentally rehearsing which key points she will deliver when she moves to each of these different places. And this is actually, in NLP, we call this is your spatial anchoring. So you're anchoring different points in different places. So she was very, very focused and very conscious with what she was doing. And then imagining running a movie in our minds of her successfully completing her presentation and receiving a standing ovation. Everyone standing up. Clapping her hands once at the beginning of a presentation to trigger a feeling of being super confident. Now, those of you who know me doing different trainings, I tend to do when I'm in live training, I'll go once, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's three. But I got that clapping, I watched, and that became my anchor. That's my anchor. Yeah, that's me ready to go. That's actually triggering my energy. Telling herself, and this is all the inside world, this all came from meta model questions. So tell me what's going on. Telling herself to look at members of the audience to help them feel included. So she actually told herself, right, and there's an extra bit here. What she told herself was look at the back, start at the back left-hand corner and look along the back row and then move down along the front and back. So you almost draw a border around your audience with your eyes. And then start moving your eyes around the audience. And there's also another part is defocusing slightly so that you could look at the first row, but the second, third, fourth, and fifth rows would still think you were looking at them because your eyes are ever so slightly defocused. I could have written almost a book with this, constant talk, more and more and more things. Looking at our audience and imagine them being interested, even if they looked as if they're not paying attention. Now, where I have completely translated this to me with my NLP skills is if I see someone doing that when I'm talking, I go, brilliant. I've just hit their feelings about something. Or if I see someone doing that, I go, fantastic. They can just see where this fits in. I'm making that up. I'm assuming that. They could be bored. But you can do the opposite. People can be doing that, and then someone who's not happy presenting can go, oh, they're not looking at me, they're bored. So why not go for the best one? If you're going to assume something, assume the best stuff. Don't you have to make up good stuff. Reminding herself to stay completely focused in delivering her message for the audience. Focused. What's my message? Keeping really focused on our message. Saying encouraging things to herself mentally during the presentation. Brilliant. This is going well. This is good. being curious about the people she's presenting to by asking herself, what key points are they here for? So that linked into the outside world as well, because she used to say to people, what are you here for? What do you want to get? What do you want to take away? I do that. Most of my presentation skills have actually come from probably a mixture of modeling about 5 different people. So you can take the best bits from people you model with and make your own model, the one that really works for you. And can you see, this is all about focusing on the audience. This is all about making sure the audience is getting a key message. Consciously speaking to as many people before the presentation starts to have a cheerful conversation then. So she sets up audience rapport that she can use during a presentation. So she's anchoring in a good state. And when you anchor in a good state with different members of your audience, you've got them. Because all you have to do when you're presenting is smile to that person or ask them something. And they come up and you've got rapport with the audience, and people go, that's great. People are really connecting. They don't realise the work that went in with all the early arrivals. The people that come in early arrivals, or the people you spoke to over the phone, or the people you sent out the invitation to. Because again, in presentations, if you're in charge, make sure you're in charge of the invitation. And make sure you're inviting people to come along. In fact, Philippa and I have just done this for an organisation that we're doing leadership development for, where you make sure the invitation sets up for people to come along to enhance their leadership skills. They're not coming for leadership skills training. You don't need to tell me, I know about leadership. You know, so all this goes way, you know, there's so much involved in this. And it's the inside world behaviour that was her key ability to deliver it. So she had much more information going on the inside, and it was that inside world behaviour that was the key to her ability to deliver such successful presentations. In business, we often ask people who are successful at something to teach us this to others, and then becomes frustrated when this success is not replicated. Happens so often. You're really good at selling. Can you have a word with the team and tell them what you do? You can guarantee most people will not be able to pass that on because they're not talking about how they're standing. One of the first things I would do if I was doing sales training is I would have everyone standing up and walking into the room. I'd have them modelling how I walk in to see my clients. I was very, very successful in sales.
This is the whole key, Fiona, isn't it, to the NLP modelling, is that the expert, the person who is so good at something is not consciously aware of what they're doing.
Yeah, and if you ask them to tell you what they're doing,
teach it.
Yeah,
they can't
if you ask them,
because they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know them, and they definitely don't know the unconscious stuff that we become conscious about the submodalities.
Yeah,
you know, when you start, and especially when you're asking meta model questions to break down the submodalities, that becomes so cool. Because it just accelerates the whole modelling process. This is because we're only giving people half the recipe, the part we see on the outside, and we don't find out what's going on the inside. When your people in your business train the NLP skills to also find out the inside recipe, you have a much higher chance of developing and replicating the success in your company. So it's when you've got people in an organization are able to model success, this is huge.
Can I just make a couple of comments, Fiona? I think you hear the public say things like "fake it till you make it." You know, it's in the model world. It's quite a common one, and I don't like that. I think that what they're looking at and why it doesn't work particularly is they're looking at the surface.
Outside
and I
world.
think, as you've just said, the key to proper modelling is looking at what's underneath the surface and the meta model questions when you get the chance to talk to somebody. Not everybody does, but the fake it till you make it is just looking at the big things people are doing, not looking at the micro movements and all the nuances. And I think it's the detail that makes the difference in successful modelling.
Yes, and definitely the inside and outside world.
Yeah, and the other thing that this brings out that's absolutely key is the fact that our brains are a bit thick. We don't know the difference. We can't tell the difference between real and vividly imagined. So the example Fiona's just given of the amazing presenter doing her practice of everything going well and the audience laughing and getting a standing ovation at the end, her brain doesn't know that that hasn't really happened.
Yeah.
So you're actually practicing it going well.
And you're building, because you're practicing it going well, you're building up that confidence.
Yeah.
And I always say to a lot of my corporate clients, you know, do you think people like Richard Branson gets up there and says, oh, I wonder what people are thinking of me about me? He doesn't care. Absolutely oozing confidence. And when you ooze confidence on what you're doing, that just passes on to people. Yeah. People really learn from you. People trust, people connect with you.
Yeah. It's also the more you practice it in your head going well, the more you're actually building the neural pathways, you're strengthening the neurology of it going well.
Yeah. And one of the best places to see this is look at the Olympic Games. And we've got Olympic Games coming up soon, so you can watch that. I like to watch runners. It's more obvious in runners. And now remember, every one of our Olympic athletes now has grown up completely as children with the mind-body connection. Because sports psychology has been around for the age of athletes. There's no athlete now at that level is not working with the mind and body together. There's no sports person working without the mind and body together. When I was a child, your Olympic records would be broken. They would last for years and years and years. They'd be broken by 1/100th of a second for certain things. Now you're seeing some things smashed. I mean, there was the last Olympics, about 2 minutes got taken off something. That was unheard of. I can't remember what the sport was. It wasn't a running one, but it was something. But it was a 2-minute difference. And you'll see when you look at there's this smashing of records going because it's the mind and body working together. But watch a runner, and you'll see them. You'll see them win, and you'll see, I've won for a split second, because of course they've won because they've done it so often. And then you'll see when it hits that they've really won, and all of a sudden you'll see the face and all this excitement. But if you watch at the beginning, right at the beginning, you'll see of course they've won. I have no doubt. I've done it so often because their brain has mentally rehearsed this time and time and time again. Their brain has mentally rehearsed. And another thing when you're modeling as well, find out how people overcome obstacles. Because if you're just modeling the good stuff and all of a sudden a challenge gets thrown in your way, you might get lost because you've not modeled that bit. So maybe for presentations, how do you deal with a heckler? How do you deal with someone that interrupts you? How do you deal? So you've got to look at the things that could go wrong and maybe model a little bit of that as well. Geeta, has that helped your understanding of modeling? You're on mute.
Are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah. Is that, yes.
So it's been a great learning today. And you've given me complete package of how modeling in NLP is all about. I'm totally charged up now. So
fantastic. And it's great fun to play with. So what I would like to do, we've got half an hour. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms.
Can I just ask you a question before?
Yes, of course can.
With the example of Tiger Woods, if it's not possible to look into his inside world because you don't get the chance to ask him questions, what would you do? Just try to watch as many, videos or read his homepages.
Okay, right. I'm going to put this one over to Joe. So, Joe, what started to happen to you, for example, when you did the opera singer? What did you start to notice happening?
I think we did it in 2 sections. We did it just from observing and doing the micro muscle movements and the voice and the small things. And we were then sent away to breakout rooms to practice that. We did then have a chance to talk to her. Mm-hmm. But you start to take on that person anyway. So yes, it's more powerful if you can talk to them about how they're doing it. But if you add on, if you make assumptions, which assumptions are dangerous, we all know that. But we know that running a movie in your head of something going perfectly, it's more likely to go perfectly. So I think it's not unreasonable to assume that the experts are running those movies. Yeah. So I would encourage people to do that.
And so what you can actually do, and as Joe was saying there, notice what's happening, what pictures you're seeing. And a good thing to do is compare it, because Joe already said she's not a comfortable singer for getting up and singing with everyone. So it's really interesting just to notice what's happening in your inside world compared to what you've been doing previously.
Yeah.
And this is where it can be really fascinating if you get a chance. You can start to imagine what the submodality, well, not imagine, you start to notice what submodalities you're creating, how you're feeling, what's the things you're saying to yourself now. And if you do get a chance to maybe ask someone at a later date, you might find they're quite similar.
And you're not wanting to be Tiger Woods. You're wanting to take on what's useful to you.
Yeah. But when we do, and unfortunately, the one thing we don't do on all everything else I do on the online training, there's one thing I don't do in the online training, and that's the deep trance identification.
You can't do that online.
No, but easily. We're leaving that. We're leaving it because at some point, I don't think it's going to be this year, it's going to be next year. Now, there'll be a conference, not a conference, we'll just have a weekend in the UK with everyone who's trained online with me over the last 2 years. And we'll have 2 days of where we come and have fun. Everyone comes to it and has fun.
Great.
And we will do deep trance identification. Deep trance identification, for those of you who may or may not know, what you do is you step in, just what I was talking about, what I did with these golfers, you actually imagine the person in front of you and you actually you imagine stepping into their body. And and you make the necessary adjustments, all the micro movements, everything. It's so much fun because you end up, they take on and people start saying things as if that person would have said it, and it's very entertaining. And does everyone know who Margaret Thatcher was? Do you all know who Margaret Thatcher was? Yeah, okay. Good old Maggie. I had deep trance identification, one of my very first business practitioners that I delivered in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and had a great big tall Edinburgh Scottish police inspector, who's the most straight, very, very Scottish, and what we call doesn't have a lot of fun. And then there's this little guy who's a sales director, and for some reason we did it in separate rooms. They both decided they wanted to be Margaret Thatcher. Now, unfortunately, it was in an old camcorder. I had the film of it, but I lost it, which is a shame. They were walking about with their hands like this as if they had handbags. And obviously, the big, tall policeman went into it stronger than the other guy, because he went to the other guy, "Where were you born?" And the other guy sort of hesitated a little bit, and he turned around to me and said, "Imposter, she's an imposter." So we've had Beyonce. When I was in India, when I was in Bangalore, we had Oprah and Tony Robbins arguing about who could run the best conferences. So what we do is we put everyone into the persona that they're taking on the deep trance. Then we send them out to talk to each other. But one of the best ones I ever did was I assisted. I don't know if you were there, Joe, when Paul McKenna, I don't think you were there, when Paul McKenna did his stage hypnosis course.
Yes, I did that.
Oh, Paul McKenna did this, how to be a stage hypnotist in the UK. And I remember turning up, there was a queue outside, and it was all guys with goatee beards and black shirts, all wanting to control people's heads. But there was this particular guy, and we did deep trance identification, but there was this particular guy who was a business guy. He was actually there for business to get confidence. And he was terrified to talk to people. And he had his own business, and he had to talk to people. And he wanted to become Richard Branson. And I tested him, first of all. I tried to get him to talk to. If you said, "Go and say hello to them," no, and he couldn't do it. He really couldn't do it. And he became Richard Branson, and all of a sudden he's standing like that. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Come on, we'll talk." And they went, "Hello." went and shook their hands and walked about with such confidence. It was unbelievable. He phoned me up 4 weeks later and he said that was the best exercise I ever did for my business. He said, I'm phoning up clients, I'm getting clients, I'm going into meetings, I'm talking. He didn't become Richard Branson, he unleashed his inner confidence. Do you want to do some practical? Yeah, okay. I know Danielle always likes practical. So let me put you into, let's see, I'll recreate the rooms. We'll jump in between us. Okay, so I'll open the rooms, 35, do it for 15 minutes. So you're only modelling one person, but have fun with it. They actually proved, scientists, and I couldn't believe this in the paper, scientists have found out, wait to hear this one, that you take in information better when you sit up. When you sit up straight, your brain works better. Oh, who knew? So your parents telling you to sit up as a child. Guess what happened? They were right. Okay, so your rooms are there. Just go and join your rooms. And Philippa and I will pop in and out. Now, we'll stop the recording.